Ever had a feeling deep down, something you couldn't quite explain that turned out to be spot on?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a dream so vivid it felt like, I don't know, more than just a random brain flicker?
Right.
We're kicking off this deep dive by looking at those deeply personal moments where we sense something, well, something beyond the everyday.
Exactly. Today we're venturing into the fascinating territory of personal religious experience.
Okay.
Forget dusty old text for a moment. We're focusing on those individual sparks, those encounters people have with what they believe is sacred.
And to guide us, we're tapping into the wisdom of William James, often called the father of American psychology.
That's right.
His book from way back in 1902, The Varieties of Religious Experience, is our touchstone.
Okay, so what was James's big idea about focusing on these individual experiences?
Well, James made a powerful point. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it isn't real.
Or doesn't have a huge impact?
Exactly, or doesn't have a profound impact. He argued that these individual religious moments are actually the core of religion. The core.
Yeah, even more fundamental than, say, organized churches or established beliefs. Think of it, your own sense of the divine comes before any institution tells you what to believe.
So it's about that direct personal connection first.
Precisely. For James, religion, it boiled down to an individual's feelings, actions, and experiences.
How they connect.
Yeah, when they connect with something they consider divine, a fundamental reality that inspires, deep respect and awe within them.
And what counted as a religious experience for him? Was it just like visions?
Not necessarily just visions. He was talking about those distinct feelings and experiences that come with religious belief.
Okay.
Imagine feeling a divine presence or taking part in a ritual that really moves you deeply.
Yeah.
Or having what feels like a spiritual insight or, the powerful states people reach through prayer or meditation.
Things that feel different.
Right. These often feel like they step outside the boundaries of our normal everyday perceptions.
And these aren't just abstract concepts floating around in someone's head, right? They really shape how people live.
Absolutely. These experiences carry huge personal weight, and they're shaped by each person's unique beliefs, their cultural background, their life story.
Makes sense.
James really emphasized that this personal experience is at the heart of religion, maybe even more so than specific rules or doctrines. Through practices like contemplation or prayer, people can deepen their personal connection to their faith and build, a rich inner religious life.
This brings us to the heart of our exploration today, the experiences of someone we'll call Mr. Zhang.
Right.
Our sources tell us his story suggests a very real connection with something beyond the ordinary. A guiding force, it seems, that influences his family life, his work, and how he serves his religious community.
And what's really intriguing is how this guidance seems to come to Mr. Zhang. This unseen yet very real influence, it communicates in ways that aren't typical things like vivid dreams or even auditory experiences, hearing things.
Wow.
For him, these experiences were so powerful, they felt undeniably true, compelling.
And that led him somewhere.
It led him to a deep reverence for figures like Qigong and Maitreya Buddha.
It makes you wonder how often these kinds of personal experiences happen. Interestingly, our sources include the work of a Taiwanese scholar, Kai Yanren,
Yes.
who pointed out back in '94 that historically, studies of Chinese religions in Taiwan often overlooked the importance of individual experience. It wasn't seen as, valid data sometimes.
That's a key insight.
Yeah.
Kai Yanren noticed that while, yes, all religions point to some kind of transcendent reality,
Right.
the way individuals personally experience that, reality wasn't always taken seriously in academic studies.
So the focus was elsewhere.
Exactly. These experiences live within each person's inner world and how they express their faith outwardly. But for decades, it was much more about the institution, the structure, than the individual's inner life.
So even if one person's experience feels very specific to them, very unique, it's still a valid and deeply meaningful experience for that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this lines up perfectly with James's focus on the individual. No matter how narrow or unique a religious experience might seem from the outside, it holds profound significance for the person living it. And Kai Yanren later observed that traditional religious organizations, they can sometimes prioritize their own structures and authority,
Right.
perhaps missing the deeply personal feelings, the concrete religious experiences of their everyday members.
It sounds like the way we understand religion, or maybe how we study it, has been evolving.
It definitely has, especially with the rise of new spiritual movements. the focus has shifted
How so?
from just looking at religious organizations, the structures, to really understanding the personal meaning these beliefs hold for individuals, moving from the collective, sort of, to the individual's inner world.
Interesting.
We also have the perspective of the British religious philosopher John Hick. He suggested that religious experiences are moments that shift our awareness.
Shift our consciousness.
Yeah, often as a response to a reality that's either beyond us, transcendent, or maybe imminent within us.
And this shift in understanding means we need, well, new ways to look at these experiences, right? The old ways aren't quite enough.
Precisely. Traditional methods alone aren't sufficient. Religious experience isn't limited to grand, dramatic, mountaintop events.
It can be more subtle.
It can be woven into everyday religious practices and even just ordinary life moments. But it's also important to remember, while deeply personal, these experiences aren't purely private.
I mean.
They're also connected to communities and influenced by the society, the culture around us. External social norms play a part.
Okay, so when we examine Mr. Zhang's experiences, we need to look beyond just the formal doctrines and the rituals he follows.
Absolutely. Our approach involves looking at his daily life. How does it connect with his emotions, his beliefs, his understanding, his actions?
The whole picture.
Right. And while the feeling of sacredness in a religious experience is personal subjective, it's also shaped by the cultural symbols and the understanding a believer already has.
Ah, okay.
As the scholar Juan Kexian noted, for many people, their own experience becomes a powerful form of evidence for their faith, sometimes more convincing than abstract theological ideas.
Experience is proof, in a way.
In a very real way for the individual, yes.
So it sounds like understanding Mr. Zhang's religious experiences can offer a fresh angle, a new perspective on traditional faith itself.
Exactly. Our sources highlight that through his religious experiences, Mr. Zhang obtained his own faith.
His own faith.
Yes. So our deep dive here takes a religious psychology perspective. We're using his story adapted, of course, to explore how his religious experiences unfolded.
And what are you focusing on within that?
We're particularly interested in how this development interacts with his emotions, his beliefs, his practices, trying to reconstruct and understand the driving forces behind his faith.
And it's not just about internal feelings, is it? You mentioned Mr. Zhang's experiences seem to lead to concrete actions.
Precisely. That link is crucial. Through his religious experiences and his active involvement in his Yiguandao community.
That's a modern spiritual tradition.
Yes. Through that involvement, the practices of spiritual cultivation become integrated into his daily life. It's not just Sunday morning stuff.
See, it's practical.
Very practical. This involves consciously engaging his emotions, his intellect, and his actions to support his personal growth.
And you can track that journey.
We can see his journey as a Yiguandao believer, moving through stages from initial spiritual promptings, what they might call manifestation,
Okay.
and then being taught religious principles, to eventually truly embodying the Tao and aligning his inner self, his heart, with the divine.
So ultimately, what are we aiming to learn by focusing so closely on Mr. Zhang's story? What's the bigger picture here?
Well, one goal is simply to witness the impact of what believers perceive as divine assistance in Mr. Zhang's life, the practical effects. But maybe even more importantly, we want to understand how individuals like him transform that perceived external divine power into an internal drive.
Internal motivation.
Exactly. Motivation for their own spiritual development, which can lead to personal well-being, healing, and a greater sense of their spiritual nature, an elevation of it.
So, having taken this deep dive into Mr. Zhang's experiences, what are the key takeaways that really stand out for you?
Well, it really underscores William James's central point, doesn't it?
Yep.
The profound importance of individual religious experience.
Yeah, it really comes through.
Mr. Zhang's life provides such a compelling, real-world example of how these personal encounters can genuinely shape someone's beliefs and their actions.
And this idea of the unseen being incredibly real in its impact is so evident in his story, that guidance he felt he received.
Whether through dreams or hearing things.
Right, whatever the form, it had a powerful and lasting effect on him. It wasn't trivial.
Absolutely not. And it highlights the ongoing shift in how we study religion, increasingly recognizing that personal experience isn't just a side note.
It's central.
It's central to understanding religious life. It's not solely about institutions or texts, important as they are, but about the lived reality of individuals.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Considering Mr. Zhang's story and James's ideas, What unseen influences or deeply personal experiences might be shaping your own perspectives and choices,
Hmm.
whether that's within a religious context or even completely beyond it?
That's a crucial question for you, the listener, to ponder. Think about those moments in your own life, times that felt particularly significant, maybe guiding,
Or just weirdly meaningful?
or just unexplainable by everyday logic, exactly. How might these experiences, however you interpret them, contribute to your understanding of yourself and the world around you?
If this discussion has sparked your curiosity, we definitely encourage you to explore further. William James's The Varieties of Religious Experience. It's still a foundational work, really.
Absolutely. And there are many fascinating perspectives to discover within the psychology of religion today as well.
Yeah.
Ultimately, perhaps the most meaningful insights aren't always found in, grand pronouncements or doctrines from on high.
But closer to home.
Maybe they're in those quiet, deeply personal encounters that shape each of our unique journeys.